Okay, so now we're going to talk about what's called multiple criteria. In this particular spreadsheet, what we've got is we've got information here on people's names, age, the department they work in, what their title is, and how much money they make. So now we can say, okay, now I want to take this and I want to get some good information out of it. So here, if I wanted to find out, it says how many employees are in the human resources department. Okay, so here in this cell, I'm going to come in and it says I want to use this formula called COUNTIF. And what it's going to do is it's going to count up the number of the values for a particular criteria that I give it. Okay, so we're going to do COUNTIF, and I can do an insert function and say COUNTIF. Okay, and there's our COUNTIF. We also have a thing called COUNTIFs with an S, and we'll look at that in a minute. But right now we're going to do COUNTIF. I'm going to say, looks like that kind of went off the bottom of the screen there. I'm going to pull that up a little and say OK. Now, in a COUNTIF, it says what is the range that you want to look at. So count the number of cells within a range that meet a given condition. So this says here range is the cells from that you want to count non-blank cells. Okay, so in this instance, I want to look at human resources department. So I need to be looking at the values here in cell C2 through C24. Okay, so in C2 through C24, is it equal to, and so it says now what's the criteria, the condition that I'm wanting to count. Okay, and I'm going to count it if it equals human resources. Now notice I automatically put in that double quote because I know this is a text string. Okay, so is it equal to human resources? And it says there are 2 of them. Okay, so how many employees are in the human resources department? We have 2. Okay, now this one says average if. Okay, so let's look at the average if function. Okay, so the average if function, and again we have average if and average ifs with an S at the end. Average if, it says, okay, now it says what is the range of cells you want to evaluate. Okay, so this is where's my criteria? What is the average age of the employees in the sales department? Now this is the hard one because we're wanting to look at average age, but we need to determine if they're in the sales department. So actually in this instance, our range that we're going to be looking at is whether or not they're in the sales department. Okay, so we look here and we got our range from C2 through C24 equals sales. Okay, if they're in the sales department. Now it says here that this average range is not required, but this is the actual cells you want to find the average. If omitted, it's going to use the other range. Well, it can't use the other range because that's text, so I need to go ahead and tell it my age range here, and my age range is B2 through B24. So my average age in the sales department is 33. And I could go back and I could figure that out. I could take 24 plus 28 plus 33 plus 22. I could come in and I could do that average myself and divide by the total number to see if that was right. But I'm confident Excel did it correctly. All right, now we've got a sum if. Sum if is very similar to average if, where you give it a criteria for a particular range and then you sum the values. So we're going to go ahead and do a sum if. And go ahead and select that. It keeps going below. All right, our range in this instance, it says the total salary expenditure for associates. So that's going to be our titles here. So we need to go in and we need to do our titles, and it needs to be for associates. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and make that a capital A. I'm just using my arrow keys to go back. All right. And then for my sum range, what values am I actually going to sum up? Well, I'm not going to sum up associates, right? Oops, sorry about that. I was trying to move something and then it highlighted it. We actually want to highlight our salary range because that's what we want is our total salary expenditure. Okay, so E2 through E24, where, and actually notice I have an S right there where it says associates. That is going to return a 0 value. See how it's got 0 right here? Because it can't meet it. So I don't want that S there. I want it to just be the same thing as what I've got here. So having exactly the right thing is going to make a difference. And that's going to give me now that my summation of all my associates' salaries is $397,283. All right. For count ifs with an S, count ifs, then we need to come in, and it looks a little bit different than our count if did. So we're going to do count if with an S, ifs, say go. There's our count ifs. And what it does is it counts the number of cells specified by a given set of conditions or criteria. So we're going to have more than one criteria. Okay. And in this instance, what's that criteria? It says we want how many employees are older than 30 in the production department. And I can choose to do age first, or I can choose to do production department first. Doesn't really matter. In this instance, I'm just going to pick department first. Okay. So for that particular criteria, that needs to equal production. Actually, I don't need that equals there. I just need my open quotes. So are they in the production department? Okay. Now, it says there's 6 people in the production department. Okay. Now my second criteria now is going to be related to, are they older than 30? So I'm going to highlight all of the information here in age. Okay. And then it says, are they older than 30? Are they greater than 30? Okay. And then it says that of those 6 employees in the production department, 5 of them are older than 30. Okay. And that gave us now our 2 different criteria to be able to count up those number of employees. So let's look at how average ifs works. So this is average ifs with an S at the end. So that's going to allow us to have multiple criteria. So average ifs, and say go. There's our average ifs. And it says in this one, different than the average if was. Remember, average if we looked at the criteria range. In this one it says, which one do you want to average first? So it's just a little bit different. So in this one it says, what's the average salary? So we're going to take our average salary. So we're going to take salary. And then it says the criteria in this one, for the first one it says the average salary for a tech in the QA department. Again, you can pick tech first or QA first, either way. In this instance, I'm going to go ahead and pick the QA department and say QA. QA stands for quality assurance. And then for tech, I'm going to come in for my title. And notice it says tech, not technician. So we want to make sure we say tech. All right. And the average salary for a tech in the QA department is $24,237.50. So we were able to put 2 criteria in. Same thing for sum ifs. We can do the same type of criteria. It looks a little different than the sum if without the S, because again, it's going to want us to put our category that we're wanting to actually sum up first. So our sum range is going to be here. Our criteria range, it says, what's the total salary expenditure for managers in sales? So total tells us we're sum, managers in sales. So I'm going to go ahead and this time I'm going to do title first. You'll see it doesn't really matter. And this is going to be for managers. So the title is manager. And criteria 2 is that sales department. Okay. And that sales department here. So the total of the manager's salaries in the sales department is $128,632. So really kind of a neat way to take data and utilize multiple criteria. All right, let's go ahead and do and, or, and not. And, or, and not are a couple of our other logical functions. So if you went up here under logical, you'd see it says and. It says checks whether all the arguments are true, returns true if they are, or checks to see whether any of the arguments are true, and then not is changes false to true or true to false. It just flips things around. Okay. In this instance, we're just going to do our and it says checks to see if an employee's first name is John and if he is a manager. Okay, so we're going to do our and function, and I'll just pull that out. And you can see here it says, what is our first logical test? And in this instance, just like in the if statement, it has to be a full evaluation. So we would evaluate here, our first name is his first name, John. So does B4 equal the text string, John? Okay, and then our second logical statement says, is he a manager? So then I come over to the position and say, is the position equal to manager? Okay, so we can see here, is John a manager, and is John a manager really is. So we're going to get, the name has to be John, and the position has to be manager. Now you'll notice I can do multiple logicals, and as I would put more in, I would be able to scroll down and do more. Lots and lots of them it can be. You can have up to 255 conditions here. I've never used that many, but I've used up to 3 or 4 to get a return of or certain features there. Okay, so I'm going to say okay. Now notice this says true. Now if I tried to copy this down, it won't work because we have an extra column here. So I'm going to have to copy this one down manually. And let's go down and see how far we can go there. Now it returns true if that's actually there. So this one says John and manager. This one says John and manager. Okay. Now, this column, it says we want to use the OR function. Should look exactly like our AND function because we're putting the same criteria in, but this time we're using the OR function instead of the AND function. Okay, so I'm going to go to my logical and type OR. Okay, and this time I'm saying, is this equal to John? Okay, got the wrong one there. Okay, and the second one is position equal to manager. Okay, and there we go. Now I've got is John equal to a manager, is B4 equal to John, or is E4 equal to manager? Now when I pull that down, I should have more OR statements than AND statements because there are managers that are not named John. Here we have a manager that's not named John, and here we have a John that's not a manager. So we see that there are more trues in our evaluation of the OR function. So those are just extra functions that can kind of help us out with that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and scroll over on my spreadsheet a little bit here. And the next one I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you these nested ifs. Okay, nested if functions are where we can use an if function and put something inside of it. If this happens, do this. Else, if this happens, do this. And so it's kind of like creating what's called an else if, or an additional if statement going further down. In this instance, we have 3 different categories. We have a child if they're less than 13, we have a teen if they're less than 18, and then we have an adult if they're 18 or more. So we need to create what's called this nested if. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. We're going to put an if statement in, and I'm just going to type if and open my dialog box. And once you really start using Excel, you won't need to open these dialog boxes every time, but for now, I think it'll be a little bit easier for you to do so. Okay, so logical test says, what's the age? Is the age less than 13? Okay, that's the first one. If it's less than 13, then that person is a child. Okay, now I still need to determine if they're a teen or an adult. So my value, if false, actually is going to hold another if statement. So I'm going to go ahead and type that if right here. And I'm going to go open and close that parenthesis. Now notice I now have up here in my formula bar another if statement. If you take your cursor and click between those 2 red parentheses, it will allow you to have the dialog box for the internal if statement. Okay, so our logical test here is going to be, is C2, now is C2 less than 18? If it is, then this person is a teen. Otherwise, they're an adult. So now I've evaluated. The first thing it did is it looked to see if they were less than 13. If they were less than 13, it stopped evaluating and returned true. Returned child because it was true. If they were greater than 13, then it evaluated, are they a teen? If they were, then it brought back teen. Otherwise, it's bringing back that they're an adult. I don't actually need another if statement for adult because it's kind of what's left over. Okay, say okay. Now, Jeremy's an adult. Okay, let's see whether the others worked. Tony's a child. Madison's a teen. Juan is a teen. And it worked for us, okay? So, if I wanted to go back in and look at either of those if statements, I can come back up here, click inside it, and I can pull the dialog box for that particular one. Notice again, if I click over here, it'll change to the full if statement. And you can see that if statement's embedded there in the false. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out that changes I was making. Just wanted to show you that you could easily get in there and change those. All right, let's look at this nested if. This nested if wants us to put an and inside of our if. So it's just another type of nested if. Okay, so this time it says we're going to create a nested if in section and value here for H2. An employee needs to be evaluated if they work in the north location and they've been with the company for less than 5 years. Okay, if both of those criteria are true, then they're due for an evaluation. Otherwise, they're not. Okay, so that lets us know kind of what we're after. So I'm going to start with my if function. Okay, so I'm going to say equals if. Okay, now I'm going to open up my box here. And my logical test is I have to have 2 criteria for that logical test. I have to have an and statement in my logical test. So, and, open, close my parentheses, and notice here, now I've got that extra little, there are different color up here. I'm going to click inside that, and that'll open my and dialog box. Okay, so the first thing is this cell, is their location equal to north? That was the first criteria we have. Okay, the second criteria is their years of service, and I know that it's kind of over that, but I know if I click right there, I get G2. I could also type G2. Is G2 needs to be less than 5 years? Is G2 less than 5? So, do they work in the north, and is G2 less than 5? Now, if I hit OK right now, it's not going to have a true or false value for my if statement. So, and that's okay. If you did that, you could always go back in and edit it. But instead of clicking OK here, I'm going to just go back out and look at my if statement again. So I click on my if statement. You can see my and statement's now embedded there. And my value, if true, needs to be yes. And my value, if false, needs to be no. All right, let's see what we've got. All right, he has 5 years of service, so that's not less than 5. Okay, all right, let's see what else we've got. So the only 2 employees are actually up for evaluation. That's Lily, she's in the north location with 2 years of service, and John in the north location with 3 years of service. Now notice when I copied that down, all of those became blue. I'm going to show you something else. When I copy it down, if you want to maintain the formatting that you see here, right here you can come in here and it should give me the option. It did not give me the option of maintaining my formatting. Usually it does that. Let me see if I can get it to do it. No, it is not giving me the option. A lot of times, you get a little thing down there that you can click on, and it lets you say copy without formatting. So just copy like sort of the values in there. And sometimes it should have done that, but it didn't. So what we'll do is we're going to take this, and we're going to go to our Home tab, Format Painter, and now I can pull that back so that I have that same formatting on all of them. And it's still an if statement. I just changed its formatting. All right, so there's that nested function. Let's look at this nested function. This one says, create a nested if the sales rep's average sales are greater than or equal to 50,000. Mark their status as okay. If the sales rep's average sales are less than 50,000, mark their status as needing training. Okay, so we're going to use if and average. Okay, so here we're going to start off with our if. Again, we can do it lots of ways. I'm going to insert my function and say if, and pick my if function. Okay, and in this instance, I'm going to be doing an average. So I'm going to say, is the average, okay, now what's the average function? So when we do an average function, if I came out here, it says, okay, I want to look at my numbers. Is the average of those 4 quarters, okay, I'm going to come back out and hit my if the average of those 4 quarters is greater than or equal to 50,000. Okay, now I've got average of those values greater than or equal to 50,000. If that's true, so greater than means they're just fine, they're okay. Otherwise, I'm going to return training. All right, so now I've got an average embedded in my if statement. Now, I could have returned, if I had just left average there, it didn't have anything to evaluate to say true or false. So I have to have average, but then I also have to tell it, is it that number that I get from the average, is it less than, equal to, greater than, equal to, those kinds of things. Okay, so say okay. And that one says training. All right, let's go and see what else we've got here. And you can see here that when I did it, it changed down and is doing the average on B8 through E8. Still saying, is it greater than or equal to 50? If it is, give me okay. Otherwise, say training. Okay. This last nested if is a really neat one. It shows you how to calculate grades. And that would be true in this class as well. So we're going to do a nested if function. And this is how a lot of computer programs do operate. They'll go in and say, is it this, is it this, is it this? Okay, so we're going to do a nested if, and the first thing we want to do is we want to take a look at, did the person get an A? Did they get a B? Did they get a C? Did they get a D? Did they get an F? So how many times do we actually need to evaluate that? Well, we need to have an if statement for A, we need to have an if statement for B, we need to have an if statement for C, we need to have an if statement for D. Do we need an if statement for F? No, because F is the default result if it didn't have any of the others. So we need 4 if statements here. So we're going to have if statement. We're going to embed that if statement 4 times. Okay, so we're going to say equals if. Okay, so there's my first if statement. Okay, I'm going to pull it up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say in my logical test here, it says, is this grade right here, the percentage, whatever their course average is it greater than, and you'll see here it says greater than or equal to 89.5, greater than or equal to 89.5. If it is, they get an A. Okay. Well, we know Karen's not going to get an A because that number is not greater than or equal to 89.5. So in my value of false, I'm going to put my if statement. So I'm going to say if, open, close my parenthesis. Notice I've got a different color up here. I'm going to click in between those. Now I'm in my second if statement, and I can evaluate for B. Okay, so I'm going to say, is that percentage score greater than or equal to 79.5? And for Karen, it's not. Okay, I'm going to hit the tab key to go to, oh, no, sorry, I'm not going to hit the tab key. It doesn't like it when you do that. I'm going to use the mouse to click down here. The value of true on this one is going to be a B. And if false, okay, now they don't have an A, they don't have a B, so now we need to go and evaluate, do they have a C? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put an if statement here, open and close that parenthesis, and click right there. See, now it's purple. So I have a black one, a red one, and a purple one. I'm going to click inside those purple parentheses, and now I'm going to have my C test. Okay, my C test is going to be C3 is greater than or equal to 69.5, right? Okay, so is it greater than or equal to 69.5? In this instance it is, so Karen's going to get a C. But let's go ahead and finish out here. So she's going to get a C. But we we could stop here, but we actually want to be able to have this formula for the other students as well. So let's go ahead and finish it out and see if they get a D. Now you'll see it's a green set of parentheses on my computer, and they could be different colors on yours. And we're going to say, is that percentage greater than or equal to 59.5? Okay, if it is, then they will get a D. Otherwise, now they don't have an A, they don't have a B, they don't have a C, they don't have a D, they get an F. Okay. All right, let's see what we get now. All right, Karen's got a C, Corey's got an A, Jared has a D, B, A, B, F. Look at that, and it worked. The nice thing about this is you can have this formula in here, and what if I went in and changed Jared's grade to a 46? Then he's got an F, right? I'm going to go ahead and undo that so it goes back to where it was. But you can easily see that formulation, when you can really take the cell and put it in that nested if. Now it looks pretty nasty when you just look at it up here, but what this is saying is it's saying if C5 is greater than or equal to 89.5, give them an A. If C5 is greater than or equal to 79.5, give them a B. Else, if C5 is greater than or equal to 69.5, give them a C. Else, if C5 greater than or equal to 59.5, give them a D. Otherwise, give them an F. All right, so that's kind of a neat way of doing it. This video took a little longer. I'll come back next time and talk about some of the other functions.